All right. Well, good morning to everybody.
Good morning.
I am Dr. Gary Huber, and I do a good amount of speaking, and in this environment, not just in my home. And people say, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm an integrative care doctor." And then I get the Cocker Spaniel head look, like, "What? What's integrative care?" So Kathy asked me that earlier. And she understands integrative care. Integrative care is taking general health. 20 years in the ER, now I have a private practice where in an integrative model, we go beyond what we know as traditional medicine, and we go, how can we reverse disease? How can we make people actually healthier? Not just put them on drug therapy to control symptoms. Drug therapy is valuable. But there's a lot of things that really make us healthy. And we're going to talk about one of those things today. We're going to talk about meditation. So there, the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows we're going there, right? Julie alluded to it. We're going there. But I want to talk, Kathy was asking me, what am I speaking about today? You're going to talk about health. I said, not directly, but indirectly, because we're talking about this. What are we doing in our heads? This is what kind of drives the rest of this to go do stuff, right? What's going on up here? And we're going to talk about that. I want to dissect it a little bit so you understand it. And obviously the focus today is on peace. Because if we don't have peace in here, how can I share peace in my community? How can I create a wave of peace in my world? All right? And before we get going, I just got talking to Kathy and Julie because I had no idea who I was talking to today. I didn't. Uma just said, will you come and talk about peace up at the Peace Museum? Well, yeah. And anytime Uma says, will you, I always, yeah, of course I will. Because Uma has brought me many great things in my life, meditation being one of them. So I didn't realize who you guys were. I have a microphone. Kat, in a very short capsule, can you explain a little bit about who this group is and what you guys are about and what you do?
Okay, but they all know, but I'm just going to
It's being videotaped and recorded because I will have patients. That's right. You can watch this as many times as you want.
Okay.
All right? But other people will watch this, and I just thought it was interesting what you were telling me. People need to know that there are movements out there engaged in this kind of activity.
Well, thank you. Yes. Friendship Force is an international organization, over 300 clubs internationally, that is devoted to cross-cultural understanding. And we do that by visiting each other, staying in each other's homes, being shown around by nationals, and we basically try to promote peace one friend at a time. So we have folks today that are from actually 4 countries, US, Brazil, Canada, and Taiwan, and lots of folks from the US, and we are here to learn about health and wellness and look forward to hearing about meditation and brain health.
Thank you so much. All right. So with that in mind, how great was that, right? It's like you get paid to do this. She's a guest. And it's so funny because you and I just had that conversation 5 minutes. We've never met before. We just had the conversation 5 minutes ago. And I said, it's amazing. Exactly what I want to talk about is how, if we don't have peace in here, how do we create peace in our community? It seems daunting, right? I'm going to go into Dayton and make it peaceful. Well, you do it one relationship at a time. You do it by the type of person you are and the impact that you have all around you. Kathy said she's already seen this. Has anybody else seen Nicholas Winton? No. Some hands are going up. Okay. I want to start with this. It's only 2 minutes long. Bear with me. The message is phenomenal.
Back here is the list of all the children. This is Vera Diamond, now Vera Gissing. We did find her name on his list. Vera Gissing is with us here tonight. Hello, Vera. And I should tell you that you are actually sitting next to Nicholas Winton. Is there anyone in our audience tonight who owes their life to Nicholas Winton? If so, could you stand up, please?
How about that? Okay. Now, if you're not a little choked up right now, you may not be human. You may need to check a pulse. Okay. So with great pleasure, I want to talk to you a little bit today about your health and how you feel, but also I want to give you some clues. I want to give you some insights on how your body works, because I am a big geek. I read papers all the time. I've been fascinated with how this thing works my whole life. And then you begin to realize, when you've been in medicine as long as I have, yeah, food matters, right? Sleep matters, stress matters. And you keep working backwards to figure out, yeah, but what caused that? If I'm diabetic, what caused that, and what caused the thing that caused the thing? And it keeps bringing me back to this. My years in medicine, and that's where Uma has been such a blessing to me, is beginning to understand that most of us create our own misery based on our own thoughts, what we're thinking, right? This is the computer that runs this. It doesn't have to be, and I'm going to show you why it doesn't have to be. And I love this from Mark Twain. The two most important days of your life, the day you're born and the day you find out why, right? And I've been searching for that most of my life. I got a really big clue. I knew I needed to be in healthcare, but figuring out the how, and that's what we're going to work on today, is the how, right? And my fabulous son is with me today, Augie, who I couldn't be prouder of. He's a University of Dayton junior, and he's trying to figure out his why and how. And that's fun to be a part of that journey. So Nicholas Winton, amazing, right? What does that represent to all of us? Well, okay, he's a great human being, and really what that to me is one of the purest examples of altruism. Putting myself in jeopardy for the benefit of others. Reaching beyond myself to make somebody else better, right? Which is diametrically opposed to a lot of what we see in the world. This statistic is real. I've checked it, and it's scary. 100 million human beings have died, not from tornadoes, not from natural disasters, but from the hands of other human beings. And that's just in the 20th century. 100 million people. It begs the question, are we inherently evil? How can we do this to us, right? More good news. Downward spiral of the human condition. Depression. By age 35, 15% of all adults have had a major depression, not just a bad day or a sad day, major depression. The occurrences of divorce, rape, and violent crime are on the rise. Divorce has more than doubled, rape 4 times increase, and juvenile violent crime is up 5-fold. There, now that I brought you all down, made you all depressed today. And then closer to home, right around the corner from us where we're sitting right now in the Oregon District, just in August. And I don't know, a lot of you are visiting. Just a month ago, there was a significant shooting and 9 people died, right? And you look at that, when I was in grade school, high school, had you ever heard of a school shooting? It never happened, right? And we look at these statistics and we have to ask ourselves, what's going on? What's changed? Something's different. And I don't believe that man is inherently evil, right? Because there's too many examples of Nicholas Winton and others, yourselves included, that have gone beyond who you are to improve this world. But let's look at some of the problems. Because I think if we understand this and we can begin to share this light, I think it will help other people. So number one, time. How many people do you know, and maybe you're one of them, that frantically fight the clock every day? I've only got so much time. I got to go. I got to go. And everything becomes a mad dash, right? And we look at the clock and it drives irritability and anxiety and lack of fulfillment. I didn't get enough done today, right? So time is an interesting concept because when we talk about meditation, I'm going to keep dropping meditation in this conversation throughout the morning. When we talk about meditation, we're trying to get to a place where there is no time. There is no place. There is no us. It's a state of being, right? And if you and I are truly in communion with each other, and we're truly reaching out and touching each other's being, time has no place in there. And I really want to encourage in your life to try to down-regulate the importance of time. Yes, we have to have appointments. Yes, we have to keep schedules. But do we have to be scheduled 24 hours a day? No. It's a problem because it creates that frantic pace. Thinking. I got news for you. We're going to talk a lot about thinking today. All of your thoughts are not valid, and all of your thoughts are not valuable, and all of your thoughts aren't even true, okay? There's a lot of stinking thinking. And the problem with that is it has a huge impact on what we do. If we believe every thought in our brain, we're going to do some really dumb things, all right? So we can think too much. Guess what you do when you meditate? You stop thinking, okay? And that's really important for our brain and our health. The ego. Now, this is a topic that a lot of people get really confused about. You're saying I'm egotistical. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying we all have an ego. The ego, the most famous saying that I enjoy is, I am not who I am. I am who I think you think I am. Have you heard that one before? Right now, I'm playing a role, right? I'm a doctor and I'm a speaker. That's not who I am, right? And if I walk around with that ego, I'm a doctor, I stand the chance of getting offended. I stand the chance of creating offense, right? So your ego is a lot of things, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but it's not truly who you are. And how do you know who you are? What is your inner essence, right? It's not your occupation. A sense of lack, a lack of time, a lack of happiness, a lack of money, a lack of respect. Somebody cuts you off in traffic. It's just an event, nothing more. But if we get mad, it's our ego feeling disrespected and therefore a lack of respect and therefore, right? And we emerge, or the beast emerge. And lastly, past and future. There is only the present moment. When you talk about meditation, this comes up a lot. Wherever you are, there's a famous book by Jon Kabat-Zinn, great book on meditation. Wherever you go, there you are, okay? There is only the now. There is no future. You say, well, of course there's a future. We're going to get up tomorrow. We're going to go do things. I've got plans. And the future will matter when you're in it. When it becomes the now, that's when it has significance, right? We can plan things. But to live our lives in the future and in the past is the job of the ego. The ego loves to look at stuff in the past and feel regret, and it loves to worry about things that might happen in the future. But neither of those things are in the current, present moment. You know, the most important moment of your life is right now. And you know what the next most important moment is? The next moment, and the next moment, and the next moment. And it's hard. It's hard to live in the present moment all the time. But if you don't even understand the concept, you have zero chance of observing it. And if it's something you practice on a regular basis, you'll get better and better and better. And I promise you this, based on medical studies, based on personal experience, based on stories from thousands of people, the more time I spend in the present moment, the more joy and happiness I feel, and the less anxiety and negativity I experience. It's worthwhile. Definitely worthwhile. So these are the problems, very simple. Now that we've identified them, we're all better, right? Well, let's explore them just a little bit more. So Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. So we look at these horrific events. We look at the 100 million people, and we look at the divorce and all these other things, and I'm not here to solve mass shootings, right? It's a big problem. But how do we start? Just like Kathy said, one person at a time. So what is my personal responsibility? I have a personal responsibility in this, right? Because we are good people. So what are we going to do about this? Everybody loves Bart because Bart's so mischievous, he's funny. But what he's got, it may be small for you guys to read. I would take personal responsibility for my own actions. Awesome. That's a great place to start. But can it be bigger than that, right? Taking responsibility for my own actions means I don't litter or I don't do certain things. But I think our responsibility is bigger than that. I think we have to look at what kind of attitude are we bringing into our communities? What kind of moods are we carrying? What kind of beliefs do we have? Because if you think you can have a negative belief back here and hide it, not so much. It's going to come out. And more than taking personal responsibility for your actions, can you take extreme ownership? Okay? This is a slightly different concept. Has anybody ever heard that before? Extreme ownership will bring you joy and happiness and make you more powerful than you ever thought you were. Because extreme ownership says, I'm responsible for everything in my field of vision, within my influence, within my neighborhood. I'm responsible for everything. You know how that liberates us? What do most people do? It's her fault. My boss did it. My son won't do his homework. And we point the finger at everybody in our community, everybody in our life, everybody in our family, because we don't want to be responsible, because it's all their fault. Is that empowering or disempowering? It's completely disempowering. We're taking the power out of our own hands and we're blaming other entities that we can't control. I can't control what my boss does or my wife does or my kids do. I've long since given up that I have any control over any of that. My son will be here to bear witness to that, right? I can influence, perhaps. I can guide, perhaps. I can offer counsel. I can be there, but I can't control you. And so when we give up that control, we get rear-ended in a car accident and we go, wasn't my fault. I was standing perfectly still and the guy rear-ended me. The person that takes extreme ownership says, what role did I play in that event? How was I was there. Do you ever notice that everything that happened in your life has one common denominator? You were there. And it's amazing, and I really challenge you to take this on. Extreme ownership. In any situation, as soon as you find, and we all do it, I do it, when we find ourselves pointing a finger and we want to blame somebody because it wasn't our fault, stop yourself. And ask yourself a simple question. What role did I play? How did I contribute to this occurring? Because I guarantee you there's some role that you played, right? When we begin to take that personal responsibility, guess what? It's an empowering understanding of ourselves. We can change our environment. We can change the interactions and the relationships we have because I have a role to play. That's far better than sitting back and saying, it's not my fault. All right? So, if the world's got these problems and we're shooting on each other and beating up on each other and being mean to each other, what's changed, right? We've already said there were no school shootings when we were in high school. What the heck has changed? What's going on? Something is amiss, right? This is new stuff. This stuff didn't exist when all of us, this is an older room in general, this stuff didn't exist when we were in grade school or even high school. What is it? Social media, right? The iPhone's been around for 10 years, they say, roughly. Everybody has an iPhone now, and my son, it's incomprehensible. How did I exist? Dad, how did you make it across the street without an iPhone? But when we look at these things, what do these represent? Can they be tools for good? They can be. It can be sharing. I got that off YouTube, right? So you all got to see Nicholas Winton based on that. That's awesome. But what do they end up often being? Places to gripe and moan and complain and point fingers and talk about other people. And here's the other thing. What do people love to put on Instagram or their Facebook? Look, we have a new house. We have a new boat. We have a new car. And my son is summa cum laude. And we love to brag, don't we? And we think we're just sharing good news, and we are. We are. But if we're not in control of our own faculty, and we look at those things and we experience envy, that begins to drive negativity. Matthew Ricard is a brilliant man who wrote a book called Happiness. You should all read it. It's awesome. You read it? You know of him?
Yes.
Yeah, he's amazing, isn't he? He's one of these guys that can say in a very few words something absolutely brilliant. And in one of his chapters in his book, Happiness, he goes, envy has to be the most ridiculous emotion on the planet. Literally, it means, I'm unhappy that you're happy. And so a lot of these are not useless, but so often they drive ego. How many likes do you have? How many followers do you have? Right? It's a lot of puffing of chests and a lot of showing off. And is that driving ego? And we're going to talk about ego a lot because ego drives a lot of behaviors, right? So you like my friend? So if I walk up to you and I don't even know you, but I smile at you, right? If I look at Kathy and we're just passing the grocery store, but I smile, I just did something to Kathy. You know what I did? Your human brain, now we're going to get into the psychology and the physiology. Your human brain has the ability to recognize a smile. Just like it has the ability to recognize if I walk up and go, that's a whole different mood, isn't it? Our brain recognizes a smile when what I did to you is I began to set into motion neurologic shifts and neurochemical shifts in your brain, and your brain went, oh, command center, get ready to smile, everybody. Get the muscles ready, get the chemicals ready. And I did. I preset your brain to smile. And what did you do in response? You smiled. And even if you didn't smile, you went from here to being very close to smiling. All right? It's true. And studies have shown if I do that to Kathy, she's much more likely 5 minutes from now, 10 minutes from now, to smile at somebody else. And that person's going to smile at somebody else. And what have you just set in motion? You just set in motion a wave, right? What if we're in the grocery store and you drop something, and rather than helping you pick it up, I push my cart away like, oh, you clumsy oaf. I've set in motion a whole different set of emotions, right? If I cut somebody off in traffic, if I'm rude, if I'm short-tempered, we are having an impact on our neighborhood. One person at a time. We're having an impact on our home. My son, I'm happy to say, and he's here, he can counter, he can give him a microphone. He grew up in a very calm household, correct? Have you ever seen your mother and I fight? We hit it well. But if you were to meet my kids, you'd go, wow, these are really nice people. They're very calm. They're nice to be around. They're easygoing, okay? And I'd like to think we had some influence on that. We have this ability at any moment in time to create a wave within our immediate environment, whether it be home or neighborhood. That's the good side. Now let's talk about ego, okay? We all have an ego. This is who we are. The ego is the baggage. The ego is a big pile of poop that we drag through our life. And sometimes the ego has a role to play. We'll talk about that. But oftentimes and consistently, the ego is a problem. This is what the ego is, all right? It's your possessions, it's the work that you do, your social status, your education, physical appearance, special abilities, relationships, family history, belief system, nationality, religion, and race. But none of those are who you are. I can change almost everything on that list. Can't change my race, I can change my religion, I can change my nationality, I can change my relationships. That's not who I am. You could change my hair color, put whole different clothes on me, tell you I'm a plumber and I live in Cleveland and I'm single, but I'm still me. Does that make sense? The essence of who we are, our very being, is still there. Let me ask you this. Where does your ego exist?
What?
Where does your ego exist? Is it in your mind? Is it in your heart? Is it in your toe? Largely, it's in our mind. It's what we think. Where's the essence of who you are? Where's your very being? Right? It's in our heart. If I tell you a wonderful story, if you watch Nicholas, I'm going to put these things down. If you watch the Nicholas Winton story, or you watch a puppy lick a baby, and you get excited and you feel good, you go, oh, I feel so good. Or do you go, oh, I feel it in my heart. We feel emotions in our heart. It's the seat of the soul. The heart is not just a dumb pump. When you go to medical school, you're taught, oh, it's just a pump, just pumps blood. No, not even close. Our heart is the seat of the soul. It's where we feel emotion. It's our true essence of who we are. And in fact, If you measured electricity, can I measure the electricity of your heart? Yes, right? I can put stickers on you and call it an EKG and measure your heart electricity. I can put stickers on your head and we call it an EEG. The amount of electrical energy coming off the heart is 1,000 times that coming off of our brain. The number of signals from our heart to our brain is 10 to 1 compared to the number of signals from our brain to our heart. This is who we are. What are we doing to nurture that? What are we doing to fuel that? What are we doing to recognize and appreciate the emotions that are meaningful? And what are those emotions, right? Love and joy and peace are those emotions. But this is the ego. The ego is the creator of all negative things. It has a role, and we'll talk about that. But largely, it is confrontational. It loves to divide. It loves to create separation. It wants to look at the past and the future. It doesn't like to be in the present moment. It loves to whine and complain. And when irritated, anger is its best response. That's its defensive mechanism. And you know that person, right? And you've probably seen yourself be that person at different times in your life. But understanding that that's what the ego is, and we all have one, what do I need to make that ego shrink and become small and very little in my life? I just have to see it. All I have to do is recognize it. All I have to do is catch myself being unkind, getting inflamed, being angry, feeling self-righteous. The ego loves to be right. Got to be right. How many times do you see that on the internet, right? How many times do you see somebody on the internet have a meaningful conversation that leads to provocative thought? No, it's you're an idiot. This is the answer. That is the ego. So if we go back to Nicholas Winton and we say altruism, we would say that is the shining example, one great shining example of altruism, right? Which is delight in the well-being of others. Another way to define that, engaging in acts of care in the service of others for unselfish reasons. For unselfish reasons. What if I'm very wealthy and I donate $10 million to the University of Dayton for a new auditorium, and you're going to put my name all over it, the Dr. Huber Auditorium. Oh, Dr. Huber is so altruistic. Dr. Huber is full of shit. $10 million anonymously. Ah, now that's altruism, okay? When we receive some type of benefit from that act, it's not really altruism, okay? So, if we talk about peace, and this group loves to talk about peace, as do I. What is peace? It's simply associated with altruistic love and nurturing those around us. That doesn't sound too hard, right? And that's what Winton did. So, these two guys live on the same planet. They live inside your body. And all of us, we all have an ego and we all have a desire for peace and love and joy and that type of emotion. So why more one than the other? Why are some people so enamored and buried in their ego and others not so much? It really comes down to our thinking. We're back to that again. What's going on up here? It isn't just what thoughts you're having. It's that you never stop. Stop thinking. All right? I have to do my job. I have to make decisions. I have to do things in life. I can't stop thinking. There's a balance. And so many of us don't have good balance. We think too much. The nature of the thought's important. Let me show you what happens with excessive thinking. I'm thinking about everything. Right now I'm talking to you, and I guarantee you, just in the last 20 minutes, somebody in this room, your mind wandered to, oh, I got to pick up blueberries from the market, and I need that oil. Did Bill call me back? I have to, oh, yes, go ahead. Right? You can admit it. I know it happens. They say the human mind loses track or wanders 6 times a minute. Yeah, everybody's got ADD, right? So that's going on, and our brain is thinking about all that stuff. Now, a lot of the stuff is past and future. Oh, that past event. You know, oh my God, that terrible thing happened a year ago and I just can't get over it. I see this all the time with my patients. I have a woman who had a bad event in her life. It happened 26 years ago, okay? And to this day, she'll be the first one to raise her arm and say, I have PTSD. The event was 26 years ago. It was significant, okay, but it wasn't life-changing. So for her to carry PTSD forward, how is that even possible? You have to be associated with your ego. Your ego has to hang on to that event and relive it and relive it and relive it and relive it. But it's not the present moment, is it? And then we worry about things in the future. What if the market collapses? What if I don't get that job? So that's what our brain's doing a lot of the times. When I say thinking is a disease, look at it this way. If I said, I'm going to have 2 beers 2 nights per week, would you call that a disease? Probably not, right? I wouldn't. But what if I said, I'm going to have 24 to 30 beers every single night of the week? Now we got a disease, okay? And that's the difference between having a glass of wine and being an alcoholic. Same thing with our thinking. Thinking is valuable, it's critical, it's crucial. But a lot of the thinking we're doing is garbage, absolute garbage. Here's a question. We're going to talk about meditation. How many of you in this room can turn your brain off at will? How many people go to bed and, oh my God, my brain's so busy I'm up for an hour before I can fall asleep? Or how many wake up at 2 in the morning and my brain is just going off with my to-do list and I just can't get it to slow down? If you can't turn your brain off at any given moment in time, you don't have control of your brain. And it's common. You're in the majority. I'm hoping today to convince you to be a minority, okay? And learn how to control your brain. Because when you do, the quality of your thinking will improve. Your health will improve. Your anxiety will reduce. All right, and I'm going to show you how that works. All the things that really matter. And tell me if there's something I missed on this list. Joy, love, inner peace, happiness, beauty, and creativity. They all arise outside the mind, the thinking brain. None of those things come from the thinking brain. They come from the heart. You say, well, creativity, I've got to be able to think. Actually, they've shown that when the brain is in a lower brain wave called alpha or theta, we're more creative. Beta waves are very, 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 very busy brain waves. You might be in mid-beta right now because you're listening and you're taking in information. Now think about this. If I said, okay, I'm going to give you a piece of paper, I want you to draw an artistic picture, right? But I'm going to put you in beta waves. I'm going to stress you out. All right, your picture is going to be judged against hers, and you have 5 minutes to do it. Come on.
Right.
You can't be creative in that mindset, right? So if all of the good things we want in our life come from outside the mind, I better have good control of my mind. Otherwise, I'm not going to experience it. Now, this always comes up when I talk about meditation. I'm fill in the blank, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, and so you're suggesting a religion. I'm not. Okay? Meditation is not a religion. Now, meditation predates Christianity by 1,500 years. Meditation is a part of every religion on the planet. I'm not suggesting you replace your religion with meditation. I'm suggesting it's a great tool to enhance your religious experience. The best thing that was ever told to me was prayer is when I talk to God. Meditation is when I shut up and listen. Okay? He's got some stuff to say, but if my mind's always chattering, I really can't hear it. All right? So, this is my friend George. I'm going to use George as a roving example of what most have experienced, and you're going to go, yeah, I recognize that. Let me get my glasses on so I can read what I've written, because I haven't memorized this. I wonder if it's going to rain today, right? Random thought. This is our brain. It's just random thought. When is it going to rain today? Oh, we had a lot of rain yesterday. I hope the basement doesn't leak. Now we're looking into the future. I hope something bad doesn't happen based on something that hasn't even happened yet. San Diego needs more rain than we do. Why would you live in California in the first place? Right? It's dry, it's overcrowded, it's overpolluted. Our brain's just going off on tangents, and we're making judgments, right? How much of the ego is rising up going, hey, California sucks, right? I think I'm overdue for an oil change. And I got to find, the dealership is a ripoff, another judgment. I need to find me a good mechanic. Notice how we're constantly judging and asserting what we think we need. Look at all this litter on the sidewalk. People suck. Right? We get these negative thoughts. That's part of your default mode network. It's part of your brain that comes up with negative things. Oh my God, this lady doesn't know how to drive. Get off the road. I know you've had these thoughts. Not all the time. Really. That's what you choose to spend your time on? Fill in the blank. Video games, magazines, whatever it is, we're just judging. I hope my son is studying. I'm paying a lot of money for that school. I did that for you, Og. Yes, I get it. Get to the point already. Telemarketers should be shot on sight. How is that even legal? Again, just random generated thoughts, a lot of them negative because that's our default mode network. It tends to generate self-referential negative thinking. That's why we have to control our brain. I don't feel like working out today. I'm tired. How can I get my wife to stop spending so much time and money on shoes? And why can't I ever catch a break? Now, this is what your brain naturally normally does. And if we don't have control of it, how is that going to affect your mood? How is that going to affect how you interact with somebody, right? If I'm worried about my wife's expenses and my son's college and the lady in front of me that can't drive right. So learning how to control our brain is very important. Now, this is probably one of the most important slides of the day. These are facts, folks, all right? We think 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day on average. How the scientists come up with that number, I have no idea. It's not my concern. It's been documented, all right? Of those thoughts, 90% of them are repetitive thoughts. We've had them before. They're not original, they're not creative. We thought it yesterday and last week and last year. And we just keep thinking that same garbage over and over and over again. How many of you get up every day, same side of the bed, go make the same cup of coffee, eat the same breakfast, get in the same car, take the same path to work, do the same job, come home, watch the same TV show? We're living in the past. All right? Now, some of that repetition, I get it. It's part of our routine. But a lot of the thoughts we have are garbage, and they're repetitive, and they're old, and they're pointless. 50% of our waking hours, experts tell us, are spent in a default mode network. That means our mind's wandering. You're here, but you're not here. You're driving your car, but you're thinking about Betty. Your mind wanders half the day. And in that default mode network, many of the thoughts are self-referential, meaning they're about me, and they're about negative things that might happen to me. What if?
What is DMN?
Default mode network, okay? It's a part of our brain. I'm going to show you some MRI studies of people that meditate, and guess what? This default mode network, the more active it is in your mind, the more negative you are, the more anxious you tend to be, the more your risk for ADD, the worse your sleep. When you learn to meditate, meditation reduces DMN thinking. We can see it on MRI. That's real science, okay? And if I reduce my default mode network and other parts of my brain through meditation, I'm naturally, genuinely, neurologically happier and calmer and nicer and more peaceful. So if I can learn to meditate and I can teach my son to meditate, and together we teach you guys how to meditate, and Uma affects the whole Dayton area, this becomes a more peaceful place. It's a nicer place. This is the amount of great thinking we do in a day. It's pretty small relative to all this stuff. And then quiet meditation. How much time do we spend in quiet meditation? Darn little, and for most people, none at all. Okay? So, if this is what my mind's doing and it's problematic, that's the solution there. So, our brain is a busy place. We're thinking about past things, future things. We're worried about stuff that doesn't be worried about. How many times do you hear your mind say, well, what if? What if the market collapses? What if Judy's wedding on Saturday, they get rain? What? You get my point? So, if this brain is so busy and a lot of it's negative, that's what we end up being, right? He looks really happy. He's having a great day. His brain is not resting. A lot of us go through life with a restless mind. Things aren't exactly the way I want them, right? Everything isn't lined up the way I want it to be. And we resist that. We resist. Resistance means, let's say it started raining. A lot of us would say, thank goodness it hasn't rained in 2 weeks. But if it rains, you've heard people go, oh, great, today it's raining. Today sucks. Rain is what rain is. Most of the things in our life simply are what they are. Resistance means we fight what is. Whether you love him or hate him, Donald Trump is our president. We see a lot of resistance, don't we? We see a lot of fighting. He's our president. So-and-so is your governor. There are many things in our life that simply are, but we're not willing to be with it, simply be and allow. So this guy, he's not happy. So I'm going to go on Amazon, and I'm going to buy myself some happiness. I'm going to buy myself a new shirt, and that'll make me happy. And so he buys the shirt, and the shirt arrives, but it's the wrong color, the wrong size, the wrong model. It arrived late. The box was damaged. It was blah, blah, blah. So what does he do? He gets online and expresses his disappointment, and he starts venting on social media, and he spews his venom. You should never buy from this company, and that person is bad. You nice people, I'm sure, don't do that, but there are people like that out there, right? Because the ego has to be right. I have to be right. I was wrong. My boss did something to me. My wife did something to me. I'm going to self-soothe with stuff. Buy stuff, eat stuff, drink stuff, right? We're going to self-soothe, and all that has to do with the ego. That's not who we are. Because we have to be right. The ego always has to be right. So notice how the ego keeps taking us out of a peaceful, enjoyable life and sucking us into a vortex of misery. 90%, 95% of all the misery in our lives is self-induced. We created it through resistance. So the simple question remains, are you happy? I'm looking, I'm seeing nods. It's so funny when I ask patients this, are you happy? And commonly I get the, let me think about it. If you have to think about it, you're not happy, okay?
Happy and you know it.
So this is, kind of the crux of our talk today, is we want to create peace in our environment. It's impossible to do that if our ego is ginormous and our sense of peace is very small. We live right here. This is where you are. Where are you going to be in a minute? Right there. Where are you going to be in an hour? Right there. We're always in the present moment. Meditation helps us appreciate and learn to live and be in the present moment and not be scattered into the past and into the future. Because if we're in the past, we're living with depression, we're living with regret, we're revisiting things we can't change. And if we look at the future, we're worried about things and we're making up what-if scenarios and we're creating fear for ourselves. That hasn't even happened. And if we tend to come back to the present moment and live in that space, we tend to be much happier. So, I love Edwin here. You love this Far Side cartoon, right? The door says, pull, he's trying to get in. I love what this says in simplicity. It's resistance. Do we pull at life when we should be pushing? Do we push when we should be pulling? Just open the door, Edwin. It's simple. But we make things complicated that we don't have to make complicated. When we begin to understand our own sense of resistance to what is, many things in life, they just are what they are. You may not like your daughter-in-law. You didn't pick her, right? Your son did. And she is what she is, and he loves her. And your only responsibility is to love her too, okay? And so many times I see simple scenarios like that. Well, I don't like her because she doesn't respect my husband. So we create these things in our life that don't have to be there. So the question is your mind full? Are you worried about all this stuff? Look at that beautiful trees and sunshine, it's gorgeous. And the dog is being mindful. The dog is just taking it in, right? The dog is in the present moment. This guy's worried about his car and his bills and his phone, okay? So we can choose, and that's the thing, we can choose whether we're mindful or not. So the solution, in my view, there's several things that help, but meditation is one of the strongest. Meditation shrinks the ego. When I'm in the present moment, the ego can't exist because it likes the past and the future. It lowers stress hormones. We're going to talk about that in 1 second. Everybody has stress hormones. Are they balanced or out of balance? Meditation improves our sense of calm and happiness. It's been measured. There are happiness questionnaires you can give people, and when people meditate, their anxiety scores are lower and their happiness scores are higher. All right? Meditation improves our sleep. That's been seen again and again. The quality of our sleep, the depth of our sleep, and the length of our sleep improve in people that meditate. And this is one of the big reasons I meditate. I make my living with my brain. If my brain gets old and crusty, I'm out of a job. Plus, I like being involved in my life. People that meditate, their brain ages far, far more slowly. They've done studies, MRI studies of guys in their 70s that are long-time meditators, and the gray matter, the important part of our brain, is no different than a 25-year-old. That's crazy, all right? Meditation lowers blood pressure and heart rate, which means less heart disease, and meditation improves our cognition and our problem solving. You're more creative, more able to solve problems if you meditate. So this is an artwork by Andrew Roy Jones that hangs in my office. I love it because every time I see it, which is dozens of times a day, it reminds me to get out of my head. Get out of my head. Stop thinking. Be in the present moment with somebody. When I'm problem solving, I got to think. But I don't need to be doing that all day long. These are brain waves. These are beta waves. That's where we are right now. Notice how short and tight they are. We're paying attention, right? And if I said There's going to be a quiz after this. Oh my God, your beta waves will get even a little bit higher, okay? And then when this is over, if we sat around and had milk and cookies and just relaxed and talked about our kids, we would drift down into alpha waves, and as we get closer to sleep and into sleep, we go into theta waves. Meditation puts us here. So if you're busy and stressed in the middle of the day and you're in beta wave, and you say, I'm going to learn how to meditate, I'm just going to chill out. The brain waves slow down, right? And we're calmer, and we're more creative. That's when you assimilate memories. You may learn something here, but you're not going to retain it if you don't get into alpha waves and theta waves. When we go to sleep at night and our brain waves slow down all the way to here, that's when we take all this stuff I learned today and then we start filing it away and collating it into different files in our brain for retention. So if I don't sleep or I don't calm my brain down, my memory's really kind of poopy. All right? So if I make stress hormones, if I'm always in beta wave and everybody's the problem and people are terrible and that's where I live my life, I'm going to develop stress hormones. These are all the fantastic emotions I get to enjoy if I continue to produce stress hormones. Look at all that. Pain, suffering, hatred, anxiety, depression, anger, frustration, hostility, aggression, judgment, fear, insecurity, worthlessness, sadness, and guilt. Those don't come from your heart. Those don't come from your being. They come from your brain when your brain is stressed. That is the result of stress hormones and basically represents lack. I lack money. I lack time. I lack compassion. I lack respect. Does that make sense? All of that's manageable. We can control that because something in our life is saying we don't have enough. Envy. Oh, she has a Lexus and I'm driving a Ford. All right? So all that. So we're either living in survival mode or creative mode. Survival mode, I'm just trying to get through the day, man. Just trying to survive. And when you go into survival, it's all about me. It's about my body in this environment, and it's me, and it's self-induced, it's self-referential, self-centered, self-indulgent. That's the actions of somebody who's surviving life versus somebody who is creative, who has alpha waves and is outside their head and who experiences love and benevolence and peace. They're looking at possibility. I can't even begin to see possibility if I'm trying to just save my own skin, right? But possibility, peace, love, unity, coming together, finding solutions, that is the mindset of somebody who is at rest, whose brain can move into alpha waves and even theta waves. And I'm going to wrap up here, but as a visual, I think this is helpful. But you say, but I got to think, I got to do my taxes, I got to finish this report, right? This represents the spectrum of the mind. That dot is focus. I'm doing my taxes. That's what I'm doing. And that's when your ego is your friend. You don't want to give all your money to the government. Give some, but not all of it, right? And so you really have to think and focus and concentrate and be self-protective and self-referential. And that's when the ego has a role. But, and notice the ego is big here. But as the brain moves in this direction toward expansion, we get away from the ego, we get away from focused thinking, and we start thinking more globally. We start thinking in terms of love and compassion and mood and emotion, and we move outside that survival mode and into what's possible. What influence can I have in this world? Okay? And that only comes through meditation. If you're stressed and anxious all the time, you never get past this. Meditation allows us to expand into what if the world was this or that, okay? It allows for broader thinking. So this right here is the center for my list, my to-do list, and order and control and rigid and defined and OCD and egocentric. And as I go that way with meditation, I become more creative. I have more ideas, more open-ended, exploring what's possible. Unity, collective, let's bring people together. The ego is about separating people. My vision, my possibility, my sense of peace. So we can only be happy in the present moment, not yesterday, not tomorrow, only in the now. And meditation brings our attention into the now. By learning how to meditate, we learn how to be in the present moment more consistently, more often. So again, are we feeding this beast? Biggest problem I run into, I talk to people about meditation. I don't know how. It seems complicated. What are the steps? I don't think I can do it, right? You don't have to figure that out today. Uma's going to guide you there. There's lots of tools, lots of tools. All you need to do to be successful in meditation is decide that I want to learn about it. I want to try it. That's all you have to be. And if you have that, you're going to be infinitely successful. And lastly, let's go look at the scientific literature. Oh, yes. Very briefly. This is a study where they looked at functional MRIs. That's real science, people, okay? That's looking at MRIs of the brain, or images that they can see the movement of blood flow and oxygen. And all I want you to get from this is when we look at meditators versus non-meditators. Oh, and by the way, they had them in an MRI and they had them focus on a dot. They said, all right, ready, focus. And they measured what their brain was doing. They said, okay, now not focus, now focus. And then they added distractions. Sounds of a cooing baby, ambient restaurant noise, or a screaming woman. So a negative distraction, a positive distraction, a neutral distraction. And what they found, and then they tracked the changes, and they could literally see the brain operating differently in meditators versus non-meditators. That's all I want you to get. A lot of people think meditation is just quiet time. You know, I watched the Dukes of Hazzard for an hour. That was kind of like meditation. It's really not, right? There are literally changes that happen in the brain, and this posterior cingulate cortex, really, really big, really, really small. The amygdala, really big, really small. The amygdala and posterior cingulate cortex are the seat in our brain for anger, frustration, default mode network activity. And people that meditate, those areas of the brain actually shrunk. Isn't that cool? Sitting quietly, learning how to meditate, I can actually change the volume of my brain. This stuff is real. Last slide. That's Jackson Ready. Now, you're going to love this. 5-year-olds in Louisville, Kentucky. And it was in the news. They got the same haircut, and they said, we have to wear name tags to school on Monday because our teacher won't be able to tell us apart. What does that tell us? Where is their ego? Doesn't even exist, right? Doesn't exist. And so kids don't have an ego until they get around 10, 11, 12 years of age. And then the brain starts to go into beta waves, and that's when we really start to see a change, right, in our kids. But that's when the ego begins to be born. We have a sense of self. Prior to that, we're innocent, humble, kind, sweet. We don't even see color. We don't see differences because we don't have an ego. The ego creates those differences. So I want you to take action. I'll give you and hand out those sheets to everybody, please. This is all lovely stuff. And I saw a few of you taking a few notes. I'd much rather you take some action. And I know you will. It's the kind of group that you are. Take action. And I'm going to hand out a sheet of paper. And on there, there's a dozen different things you should think about doing on a daily basis. Commit to yourself, not to me. Commit to yourself that this is important to you, okay? And it's things like not being right. Be okay with not being right. Somebody gave me a plaque that still hangs in my house the day I got married. And the plaque says, you can be right or you can be happy, but you can't be both. And I had that engraved in my brain. But these are things to think about as we move forward. You know, meditating, moving into a calmer space, and my son will get those all out to you. All right? So that's my practice. I'm in Cincinnati, Ohio. It's an integrated practice. I have a lot of information. We have a YouTube channel. We have Facebook. We have Instagram. So I try to keep promoting this message to people. And if you can look at those things, you might find some insight.